Well, good morning, and welcome to American Reversion, where we talk about taking our country back to the way that it's supposed to be, and got away from. How are you all today? You're going to want to share this one. I've had people ask me to do it again, and I always ask, as we try to build this channel, if you would, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, leave a comment if you'd like, even if it's just, hey, it helps the algorithm, helps to make sure that you are subscribed. Hit that bell so that you get notification of every time I put something new up, and please share it. That helps so much, and we want as many people to hear this message as possible, and especially today, because this is one some time ago, it's probably been over a year, I read the 45 goals of the American Communist Party. This comes out of The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen. It's a book that I suggest everybody have and read, along with Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. If you don't know how the other side thinks and what their plan is, you're not going to be able to fight them. Knowing your enemy is all a part of it, and too few people on our side, I think, know the enemy. They just can't believe that people would think like that, right? Because it's not normal. Well, they're commies. That's why. And so I'm going to read those 45, so you might want to save this and share it. The 45 goals in just a second. Let me I need to show you something just a second before we get started. You might be interested in the mug that I am sipping my coffee from. The brand new American Reversion mug just became available on the website, the Stonemont website, stonemont.us. I'm having my web guy put together an American Reversion website. So at that time, these will be available through that website also. But until then, these are on the Stonemont. As you can see, it's got, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. It's got the Minuteman in there with the 13 stars, and American Reversion on the bottom. Now on the back, you will be familiar with this. I'll read it for you, just to say that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. I'll sit right there. That's effect, EFF, not AFF. It doesn't mean change, it means to institute, to bring about. So as to bring about their safety and happiness, and of course, that's from the Declaration of Independence, and there is Thomas Jefferson right there on the opposite side of the mug from the handle. We have the eagle, the 13 stars, and the shield. This might be the best looking mug we've put out so far. So anyway, it's available over on the stonemont.us website. I think they're $25. We include free shipping with that. If you like one, grab one. Grab 10. Send them to friends. When I wanted to put this out, I said, when I thought about the design, I said I want a design that a person could use, and take it to the office or just around, and it would start conversations. First off, every time we take a sip, we are reminded that rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. I'm not doing a very good job here, I know. And we see that, and we're reminded of American Reversion. And then when the person across from you, it might start a conversation. They say, what is that writing on your mug? And then you get to talk about it. Okay, so that's over there. Okay, let's get to it. In the 1950s, the American Communist Party was really gaining some strength. Many people don't realize that the American Communist Party began way back in the late teens, right after the Russian Revolution and the Bolshevik Revolution. And as it was gaining strength in Russia and other places, it was also gaining strength here. The Depression kind of put up the brakes on that. And although the Depression with the social programs that were brought in really set the tone for an acceptance of certain communist ideas, right? From each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. And but that set the American people up for wanting a bunch of social programs. And then we had a bunch of presidents who kind of went along with it. And then the American Communist Party gained steam again in the 50s. Well, we won't talk about that now. I want to get right to this because you all want to hear this, okay? And so in their conference or what, a convention in 1950 something or other, I forget the year, they proposed these were their goals. And I want you to listen to each one. Some of them are a little bit, oblique. You may not see how it applies right then if you're not familiar with the times, but you're going to get a lot of them. Okay, number one, U.S. acceptance of coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. Okay, they were afraid of our strength. They wanted to get this idea of coexistence into the American psyche, and they did. Number two, U.S. willingness to capitulate in preference to engaging in atomic war. Right. Get the people to think, we don't want an atomic war. We will give up, we will give in our negotiations. Number three, develop the illusion that total disarmament by the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. Now, that might seem silly to you, but years ago, you might remember there was a large movement. If we just got rid of our weapons, they would too. The only reason the Soviets have nuclear weapons is because they're afraid of us, and if they don't have to be afraid of us, they're going to get rid of their weapons too. What a foolish, idiotic argument. But millions of Americans believed it. You see, that's one of the things. The commies and the left, they understand how dumb most of the American electorate is, and they use it. We don't realize that many times. We think that everybody's semi-intelligent, and so we expect more out of them than they're able to give. But the commies know. 4, permit free trade between all nations, regardless of communist affiliation and regardless of whether or not items could be used for war. Number 5, extension of long-term loans to Russia and Soviet satellites. So that's how they want to get American money, loans to the Soviet Union and their satellites, sending American taxpayers' money to finance the Soviet Union and their efforts against us. Have you started banging your head yet? Number 6, provide American aid to all nations regardless of communist domination. Again, they wanted us to send our money and support countries all around the world, even if they were commie countries, and we did it, and we're still doing it. I mean, we were sending grain to Russia when Russia was swearing they were going to destroy us. What kind of idiocy is that? And don't think that our leaders don't know this. That's why they have been part and parcel with this stuff with the commies for years. The only perhaps exclusion was Reagan and Trump. Okay, 7, grant recognition of Red China. Admission of Red China to the UN. How about that? 8, set up East and West Germany as separate states in spite of Khrushchev's promise in 1955 to settle the Germany question by free elections under supervision of the UN. So they wanted to set up East and West Germany. Well, we know since then, and it was set up as East and West Germany. Since then, there's been a reunification of Germany, and it hasn't gone the way I wished it had gone, but such is life, right? Number 9, prolong the conferences to ban atomic tests because the U.S. has agreed to suspend tests as long as negotiations are in progress. That's right. Very often we obey the rules when we reach agreements and treaties, and of course they don't. And so if we reach an agreement and we're discussing the ban on atomic tests, we do stop them and they don't. And our people will continue this idea of, well, if we test new weapons, that's going to show we're not working in good faith. We want them to know that we don't want a war. It's like the person who's getting beaten up saying, look, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. 10, allow all Soviet satellites individual representation in the UN. Well, they had all these little countries all over the world, a bunch of them in Africa, and a bunch of countries where, 2% of the people were illiterate, and they wanted all of them to have individual representation in the UN so that they had a lock on the votes for anything that came up before the committees. Of course, Thomas Jefferson. Number 11, promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. If its charter is rewritten, demand that it be set up as one world government with its own independent armed forces. Back in the 50s. Okay. Have we seen that? Have we seen that come to fruition? Yes, we have. Some communist leaders believe the world can be taken over as easily by the UN as by Moscow. This is what they're saying. Sometimes these two centers compete with each other, as they are now doing in the Congo. 12. Resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. 13. Do away with all loyalty oaths. 14. Continue giving Russia access to the U.S. Patent Office. Oh, God. 50. Talk about chutzpah, right? Talk about, hey, we want your stuff, and you have to give it to us. 15. Here we go. Capture one or both of the political parties in the United States. Do you think they have? Well, they captured one completely. The Democrat Party may as well be called the Communist Party, and the Republican Party, I give it a 50%. 16. Use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights. 17. Get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Isn't that the stinking truth? Have they not done that? Continuing. Soften the curriculum. Get control of teachers' associations. They certainly have. When Carter put together the Department of Education in order to get the votes from the teachers' unions, there didn't need to be a Department of Education. You look at the papers, and I know I'm not the only one who has said this. You look at the papers written by high school students back in the 30s and 40s and even 50s, although it was starting to go downhill then. It's amazing. It is far superior to what you get out of many master's theses today, as far as their grammar, their structure, their ability to reason and think. Oh man. And then put the party line in textbooks. That's right. Number 18, gain control of all student newspapers. Number 19, use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. Okay, they didn't get that done until the late 60s, but they got it done. 20, infiltrate the press. Yeah. Get control of book review assignments, editorial writing, and policy-making positions. Number 21, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Yeah, let me step in right now. This would be an excellent thing for you. If you have a group that you meet with or a bunch of friends, have them over. Have them over for a cup of coffee in an American Reversion mug. Sit down and play this. And each one that I'm reading, or get the book yourself, whatever, have a conversation. Most of them will have no idea that this even exists. And when you play this for them or you read it out of the book, it's going to be astounded. This can really help get people out of their doldrums and up off their butts and maybe wanting to do something. Because you see, the commies had a plan. And they did it. And they have succeeded. So go through this with your friends. Let them. Okay, I'll continue. It's hard for me not to interject on almost every one of these. Probably you too. Number 22, continue discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. An American communist cell was told to eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings, substitute shapeless, awkward, and meaningless forms. Have you seen the kind of crap that they call art that's standing and hanging around some of our public places? Why would they do that? Because they want to demean the human spirit. You know, art used to be uplifting. You look at some of the Greek sculptures, the Dutch masters, you talk about a celebration of Western civilization and Western culture, and they put up this crap that they have now. How am I doing on time? I'd better hurry. And that does have an effect. It has a psychological effect on the people. Control art critics and directors of art museums. It says, our plan is to promote ugliness, repulsive, meaningless art. Well, they sure have. 24. Eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. Number 25. Break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. Well, that's the truth. I mean, I don't watch TV anymore, but, I mean, when I see some stuff, there's stuff on kids' shows now that you would never have found in adult-oriented shows in the 60s and even the early 70s. Okay, here we go. Present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. 27. Infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. Discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a so-called religious crutch. They've sure done that. Eliminate prayer is 28. Eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the ground that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. And of course, you all know that there is no such thing as a separation of church and state. That phrase comes from a letter that Jefferson sent to the Danbury Baptist Church, assuring them that there would not be a state implemented religion that would threaten their ability to practice their religion as they chose. There's no such thing as a separation of church and state. The founders felt that religion and the churches were an integral part of a properly formed country. 29. Discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs, a hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. Yeah. That's where this American, well, the Constitution, is a living document. It changes with the times. Yeah. It's kind of like the morons, the false religious leaders that will say, well, you have to take the Bible, the Word of God. You have to take that in you have to consider the changing times. Yeah. God may have meant something then, but it means something else now, according to us. Number 30, discredit the American founding fathers. Present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the so-called common man. Yeah, bunch of slave owners, bunch of dead white guys, right? Rich old dead white guys, bunch of slave owners. This country was founded on the original sin of slavery. No, this country is the one that did away with slavery, if you recall. Slavery was common around the world till the British Empire, who I'm not a big fan of, but they did, there's a lot of things there that, won't get into that. 31. Belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the ground that it was only a minor part of the big picture. Give more emphasis to Russian history since the communists took over. And those of you who really study history, there has been, I'm sorry, I've been holding this book up in front of the microphone. I hope you've been able to hear me up till now. What a poor job I did of this. I'll get better. when I try to explain certain aspects of history to people, the so-called Civil War being one, World War II, the rise of Hitler, Nazi Germany, World War II. Even 5 years ago, there was a lot still available on the web and on YouTube that provided a different viewpoint than the one everybody's taught in government schools. They're not there anymore. You all, if you looked into it, you know that. They're not there anymore. Number 32. I'll hold it over here so I'm not in front of the... I'll hold it over here so the sun's on it and I can see better. Support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics, etc. Number 33. Eliminate all laws or procedures which interfere with the operation of the communist apparatus. For all you apparatchiks. 34. Eliminate the House Committee on Un-American Activities. That was the House Committee investigating the commies. 35. Discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. Well, I think the FBI has pretty much done that on their own, haven't they? 36. But, it used to be the FBI actually investigated things. Did you know that? I know, that's a different time, but they actually investigated commies. 36. Infiltrate and gain control of more unions. 37. Infiltrate and gain control of big business. 38. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. How about the Social Security SWAT teams? Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders, which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. Now, why would that be? Many of you immediately knew that. That's so that when somebody goes against the Communist Party line, they can say, well, they're obviously insane. The commies, they use psychiatric hospitals as prisons, and also to add that stigma. Well, they're insane. Okay, they're against us because they're insane. We have to take care of them. We'll stick them in the gulag, which we call psychiatric hospital. 39. Dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. Well, I forgot that was coming up. That's exactly what I just said, right? Let me repeat that. Dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. 40. Discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. Number 41. Emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppressive influence of parents. Remember the Commie Clinton, it takes a village? No, it takes good parents. Sometimes you need to keep them away from the village. I'm going to say that one more time, those last two. Discredit the family as an institution. And then emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. Share that with your undecided friends. 42. Create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition. Summer of Love, anyone? Right? That students and special interest groups should rise up and use united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. Well, we saw that. We saw that start in the riots in the late 60s. But we saw all this crap after George Floyd. That's what they were after. Let me say that one more time. Create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects, unless it's, are legitimate aspects of American tradition. that students with special interest groups should rise up and use united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. Number 43. Overthrow all colonial governments before native populations are ready for self-government. Okay, that gets a little bit complicated. What they're really talking about is a lot of the countries in Africa, to decolonize them before, and many of those countries in Africa ran a lot better under European colonization. Okay, if you look at the countries in Africa that are more advanced today, there are those who were colonized by European countries. Simple as that. I'm sorry if I hurt somebody's feelings. No, I'm not. You need to, if you don't know that, just learn your history. You'll understand it. I'm not saying anything against you. What I'm saying is you don't know. So know that. And they want to overthrow all colonial governments. And this is why there were so many, and continues to be, so many revolutions in Africa. They've always wanted to destabilize Africa because that's where the Soviets, they got a lot of things out of Africa. Yeah. So they wanted to overthrow those that were controlled by Western European countries before those countries were stable enough to support themselves, thereby allowing the Soviets to come in and control. Internationalize the Panama Canal. Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter gave back the Panama Canal. Man. And the last one, 45. Repeal the Connolly Reservation to the U.S. so the U.S. cannot prevent the World Court from seizing jurisdiction over domestic problems. Give the World Court jurisdiction over nations and individuals alike. Yeah, you've seen that. Well, one of the things that you see that in is the gun grab movement, right? Yeah. So there you have it, the 45 goals of the American Communist Party from the Naked Communist. Again, I suggest everybody read that book. Go back and review this. I hope, maybe you took some notes. Get the book if you don't have it. So you have them right there. You can read them to friends. You can read them to yourself. You can remind yourself what these things are. If you didn't take notes, I suggest you replay this and take some notes of maybe all of them, or at least the high points, so that you can discuss these. This is where our war is. Our war is, right now, our war is winning the hearts and minds of our fellow countrymen, right? Educating them in things that they may not be aware of, or of which they may not be aware, to put it grammatically correctly, and right out of that book. Get them together, discuss these things. This is where our hope lies if we don't want to go to a repeat of what we had to do in the 1770s. And remember, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God, but we don't want to have to get there. How about resistance to tyrants? That's what we would prefer, right? Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. American reversion. And if you have that, you'll be able to read this while you're taking every sip. Buy a couple for your friends. Give them out as gifts. It's a great conversation starter. Like I say, they're available now. This is the first American reversion mug we've had out. And I'm going to put out a whole line of them. It's a great conversation starter, a great way to keep it right in front of you. And I think they look pretty good. What do you think? One more sip and I'll say goodbye. I think my coffee even tastes better out of this. America needs a reversion. It needs you to be a part of it. It needs me to be a part of it. We need, one of the reasons that our country has declined the way it has been is the ignorance of the American people. And I don't mean ignorance I mean it in the true sense. They simply don't know. They aren't aware. And the more, and even our founders said, a well-informed citizenry is important to sustaining this republic. So there you have it. Think about it. Share it with your friends. Again, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Give it a thumbs up if you would. Leave a comment just for the algorithm, or a long one. Leave a long comment in there. I'd love to read them, hear them, and discussions. And then share this if you would, because that's how we fight the battle now. Okay? You guys have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.